What is up, guys? It is Marcus from Perspective Sports, and today we're going to talk about my unpopular sports opinions. I thought this would be a fun video to put out and see what you guys think, and so let's dive right into it. Number 1, elite receivers aren't a must to win the Super Bowl. Wide receivers are arguably the most popular people in the football universe, only second to quarterbacks. You have Odell Beckham Jr., Randy Moss, Jerry Rice, Julio Jones, Larry Fitzgerald, and the list goes on. But you know what all those guys have in common when you take out Jerry Rice? 0 Super Bowls. Wide receivers are a luxury for teams. And having a great wide receiver will definitely add another dimension to your offense, but having an elite level wide receiver isn't a necessity to win a Super Bowl, because 8.5, 9 times out of 10, the receivers are made by the quarterbacks. For example, the New England Patriots have 5 Super Bowl victories, and here was their best receiver from each victory. In the 2001-2002 season, it was Troy Brown. He made the Pro Bowl that season, but didn't start his first 4 seasons in New England, and had one 1,000-yard receiving season in his career, and that was that year. He was a good receiver, not elite or great. In 2003-2004, 5'9" Deion Branch, who's never had a 1,000-yard receiving season in his career, although he was close in 2005 when he had 998 yards. And in the 2014-15 season and the 2016-2017 season, their best receiver was Julian Edelman. And in the years the Patriots had an elite wide receiver like Randy Moss, they won 0 Super Bowls. They went 16-0 one season, but lost in the Super Bowl. Having great or elite receivers are not as important as having a franchise quarterback, a stable run game, a good offensive line, and a reliable defense. Up next, UCF did not belong in the college football playoff. There's no question that the University of Central Florida had a great season, one players and fans will never forget, but to declare themselves national champions is ignominious. The College Football Playoff Committee put the best 4 teams into the playoffs as it was designed to do, and we saw with the quality of games. Yes, UCF beat Auburn, who beat Georgia and Alabama, but that argument's invalid. Clemson beat Auburn, who beat Alabama and Georgia, but Alabama manhandled Clemson. So the slippery slope argument cannot be used to put UCF into the playoff. In a 6 or 8 team playoff, I would have been personally outraged to see UCF get left out. But let's look at the numbers of why they got left out and why they didn't deserve it. And let's look at the strength of schedules. Clemson played the 6th toughest schedule, Oklahoma the 4th, Georgia the 1st, Alabama the 2nd toughest schedule in the country. And where did UCF come in? 54th. Now let's look at the non-conference schedules, because this is where Alabama was banged on for quote-unquote not playing anyone. Now Clemson played the 2nd toughest non-conference schedule versus Kent State, versus Auburn, versus the Seidel. Oklahoma, the 1st toughest, versus UTEP, at Ohio State, versus Tulane. Georgia the 3rd, versus App State, at Notre Dame, versus Sanford, at Georgia Tech. Alabama, the 5th, versus Florida State with a healthy DeAndre, versus Fresno State, versus Colorado State, and versus Mercer. And then where was UCF? At 17th, versus Florida International, at Maryland, and versus Austin Peay. You can make the case that each team played one good team, and Clemson, Auburn, Oklahoma, Ohio State on the road, Georgia, at Notre Dame, Alabama versus Florida State were all tougher teams than Maryland, who was UCF's toughest team non-conference. So after looking at the numbers, I hope you see why UCF did not belong, and they have no real right to complain. If a school wanted to complain, it'd be none other than Boise State, who was undefeated twice and left out despite playing a tougher schedule than UCF. Up next is the Oklahoma City Thunder are not legitimate contenders. I've recently made a video on the Oklahoma City Thunder and their struggles, and there's no doubt they're definitely a better team than when I released that video. And at the time, we saw Paul George and Carmelo Anthony shooting career lows, and Russell Westbrook continuing to take shots in late game situations despite having awful numbers in the clutch. But even when the Thunder made the deals for Paul George and Carmelo Anthony, I didn't consider them real contenders. I firmly believed the Warriors would sweep them in a 4-game series, and the Rockets would beat them in 5 at the most. The Thunder have 2 ball hogs that don't play defense in Carmelo Anthony and Russell Westbrook, and then Paul George and Steven Adams. Mix that with no bench, you can't contend. My definition of a contender means you can legitimately win the championship, and the Thunder are not a team that can do that. And speaking of the Thunder, the conference they play in, the Western Conference, is overrated. All I heard about was how the NBA should get rid of conferences because the West is just so much better than the East. The competitive balance is out of whack. Last time I checked, each conference had two legitimate contenders in them. In the West, you have Golden State and Houston, and in the East, you have the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Boston Celtics, kind of, sort of, depending on how LeBron and IT mesh. And to top it all off, as of January 9th, 2018, the East have a winning record against Western Conference teams, sitting at 123 and 121, so it looks pretty balanced to me. The Western Conference has been overrated since the entire offseason when they made moves for a bunch of names. The Timberwolves, Jimmy Butler. The West is nothing more than a bunch of names. No legitimate contenders. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This is something different that I wanted to try. Some unpopular opinions I might have. And I look forward to seeing what you guys think down in the comment section. I'm out.